we'll go ahead and start with a call to organize a prisoner support network composed of prisoners' loved ones. PAPPA, People Against Prison Abuse, 2024 by Kevin Rashid Johnson. But before we dive into the actual reading of it, I just wanted to open the floor for Rashid to say a few words about it, if you'd like to.
All right. All power to the people. This is Rashid. Glad to be on with everyone. This piece was written in the wake of publicity being brought to prisoners at Red Onion State Prison in October 2024, resorting to the extreme, the desperate acts of setting themselves on fire, literally, in response to and efforts to be removed from the abusive conditions at Red Onion State Prison. I had then recently returned to Red Onion, and I was being held in the medical department in an attempt to isolate me. But they brought one of the men back who had been recently held at a burn center in Richmond to be treated for third-degree burns when he set himself on fire. That was Immolations. They put him next door to me, and I overheard him talking to other prisoners about several prisoners having set themselves on fire in response to just the abuses, the racism, the brutality, the degradation, the disrespect faced at the hands of guards at Red Onion. And they were trying to get transferred. They were just resorting to these extreme acts to try to get out of the prison, be removed, sent to other institutions for medical treatment. And when I heard them, I was immediately concerned, and I got into the conversation, and I asked Ekong, I said, you say you all are setting yourselves on fire. He said, yeah, I set myself on fire, 30-degree burns to my leg. I was just treated at the burn center, had to have surgery, etc. So I already knew about the conditions in Red Onion, having spent 14 years in those mountains from when the prison first opened until I was first sent out of state in 2012. So I already knew what they were dealing with. And I had just earlier that year been involved in a 71-day hunger strike in protest of conditions at Red Onion along with several other prisoners. So once the story got out, it was validated in the media after the director went in the media claiming that no one had set themselves on fire and that they were lying. And the general lack of support, the lack of outside response, the lack of any genuine pressure being brought to bear about the abuses that I had seen going on for decades in these remote prisons in Virginia, I put out this call to create PAPPA, what is originally going to be called People Against Prison Abuse, explaining from my own experience in having organized in past against and resisted abuses at Red Onion and other Virginia prisons, what I believe was necessary to get the guys on the inside some type of real voice and help on the outside to respond to and try to counter and bring attention to what was going on in those institutions. Immediately, I got feedback, responses. People were interested in building PAPPA. Abby was one of the original people who got involved, as well as several others. And we immediately went to work with some media outlets, loved ones, and organized some protests, the first of which was early in 2025, protests in Richmond on the opening day of the General Assembly. Even though there was a major snowstorm and a water crisis, it was well attended. There was a mass meeting after the protest at a local church, which brought to the attention of the public, a lot of what was going on inside those prisons. It generated a larger base of support. We learned in the process that there was another group that was actually promoting Donald Trump that had the name PAPPA. So we decided to change the name, and we held a vote collectively within UPROAR, which was then PAPPA, as to a new choice of name, and we came up with collectively UPROAR, Uniting Prisoners Relative Organizing Against Repression. And it took off from there. We've had a number of rallies, protests. We now generated a media outlet. We have several social media and website platforms where we're putting out the voices of actual victims of abuses at these prisons. We've again held a number of rallies, and the results is we have met several of our initial demands that came out from when we first founded, which was to remove the director, Chadwick Dodson, and remove the chief of staff under him, who was the de facto director, Arnold David Roberts. Both of them have now been, as we understand it, pushed out of office, although what they're saying is they resigned or they retired, even though they weren't retirement age. So I believe this is the direct result of the work that we have been doing in collaboration with other advocacy groups, organizing groups, et cetera, as we push these people out of power. This is the type of power that we have collectively. Some of the things that I recognize were going to be used to continue the abuses, which was creation of ombudsman office that was not going to honestly investigate or respond to the abuses, played out exactly as I predicted in articles that I wrote early on during UPROAR's initial founding. And it's proven that only collectively, only together, with our efforts fueled and motivated by our love and our connection to people on the inside who are victims of this abuse, can we really develop an outside support base and an outside voice that can really bring about a change. So that's why I put out the call to create the organization, and through my experience and through interacting with a number of people in various areas of resisting abuses in the system on the inside and outside, I felt I had some contributions that I could bring to the table and share with others, in informing, educating them, and helping to bring together people with a common interest to try to change conditions and to become a voice for those on the inside who have no voice and are victims of some extreme abuses. So that's what this article is about.
Awesome. Thank you for all that background, Rashid. It's been a long and hard year since we formed, and we have gotten some wins. That we have overall proven the necessity of this kind of work. So I'm glad to be a part of it with everyone on this call. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump right in. And so for the super short paragraphs, you can maybe read two, and we'll try to go in roughly in the order that we did the first time. So Sojourner will go next. After me, I'll go ahead and start it. So, a call to organize a prisoner support network composed of prisoners' loved ones, PAPPA, People Against Prison Abuse, 2024 by Kevin Rashid Johnson. In my experience, most times when people, actually, you know what? I realized we skipped Rashid in the introductions. Did you want to introduce yourself?
So everyone on the call knows who I am or familiar with me to some degree. Because I'm here, as always, motivated by my love for the people, my love for everyone here, my love for all oppressed people, and my general outrage at brutality and abuse, which in my earlier stages, I responded in kind to prison abuses, whether it was against me or my peers. And there are a number of people on the call who have interacted with prisoners who've known me for decades now. And they can account for some of my more extreme responses in my earlier days against prison abuse on behalf of my peers. And through my politicization, becoming a politicized prisoner while I've been in prison, I learned more effective ways of countering and challenging prisoners being beaten, brutalized, starved, killed, as opposed to just reacting with physical responses to guards abuse. And folks, are aware I used to get just as physical and brutal as they did toward us. And now I've learned through outside support, building outside support structures, educating and organizing, uniting people on the outside who are the actual forces that have power over those in power. As Comrade Tony pointed out, you all are the ones that pay these people's taxes. You are the source of their power. So you are really, collectively, the only force they really fear, the public. And I understand that we need to educate the people who are on the outside who don't know what's going on, and people who have loved ones on the inside who don't know what's going on. The people who have loved ones who are being brutalized that do know what's going on, we need to unite them with those who don't, become a force of education, just like I can give some insight into what's going on the inside and how the structure or the system of oppression works. Those who are related to victims on the inside can also share their experiences with other loved ones and the public in general to give truth to what is really going on the inside, where officials have typically over the years been able to just disregard or discredit what we say simply because we are classified as prisoners. The same mentality that they used to discredit slaves back in the day. Because we were slaves, because we were black, we were inherently not believable. And anything that was done to us, we deserved it because we were owned. And again, like the Comrade Tanya pointed out, they don't own us. We are people.
That's right.
All right. Now that we're all introduced, now we can get into it. Yeah. So I'll start, and then I'll kick it to Sojourner. And Rashid just dropped off. He'll call back in a minute, and I'll try to tap him in. It can be a little bit difficult, technically. But okay, so here we go. In my experience, most times when people are abused in prison and report it to their loved ones on the outside, the response is either disbelief or the assumption that the victim did something wrong. And even if the prisoner is believed, their loved ones don't know what to do about the abuse.
Okay. Those who try to respond typically run into dead ends, complaining to a prison official or legislator who promises to look into it or investigate the situation. Yet nothing is done or changes, leaving them feeling isolated, powerless, and alone. Most loved ones, and even prisoners for that matter, don't understand how the prisons and government operate and to what end. Often they trust that those in power are upright and will do what's right when wrong is brought to their attention. They're not, and they won't. Most politicians are driven by desires for power and wealth, period. So they only care about pandering to the powerful and
An
wealthy.
inmate at South Carolina Department of Corrections, Perry Correctional Institution. This call will be recorded and monitored. To decline this call, hang up. If you wish to block any future calls from this inmate, dial 7 now. If you wish to block any future calls from the South Carolina Department of Corrections, dial 9 now. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 1 now. You can now send electronic mail for customer assistance. Dial 1-877-650-4249. This call will be recorded and monitored. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
All right, I'm back.
All power to the people. Okay, I'll begin again. Most politicians are driven by their desires for power and wealth, period. So they only care about pandering to the powerful and wealthy. They don't care a whit about the common people. To do right by us, they must be made to do so.
I've spent many years organizing resistance against government abuses inside and outside the prisons. And I've learned a few things along the way. Foremost is that the public united is the one thing officials fear, because you are the source of their power. Their public image is the very basis of their ability to obtain and remain in positions of power. Yet you, the public, put them there. But as long as you struggle against abusive government individually, you have no power to affect them or their image. But brought together into a group united with other loved ones of imprisoned people, especially those who are victims of abuse, you have the power to make and take away the careers of those in power by exposing and challenging them publicly, which means they'll become responsive to you and your voice.
can read the next part. Virginia prisoners, as do others all over, need an outside support network of our loved ones and those who have been in prison. Pe- People who genuinely care about what happens to us and would therefore go to the mat for us. Career advocates and activists won't do this because most of them have their own agendas, whether it's not-for-profit chasing grant money or clout chasing looking to rub elbows with government officials, and they have their own ideas about what we should be doing and how. They are unwilling to go against the system or don't know how to unite the masses or more than a handful of people into an organized resistance group.
But
But
mothers who,
mothers whose imprisoned sons and daughters. Okay, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. But mothers
Okay,
whose
but mothers whose imprisoned sons and daughters. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But mothers whose imprisoned sons and daughters have been beaten or killed by guards or mauled by prison dog attacks are subject to constant racial abuse in remote prisons staffed by rural, segregated whites bring a whole nother level of love and righteousness, anger, concern, and commitment to an organization that aims to challenge such abuses, especially when educated by those who understand the system from the inside and underside. We need an organization composed of such people, led by those people, by those of us who can educate them on the conditions and the reality of these places and the games the officials play. We need you and our we need you as our support.
Everyone in the oppressed communities, the black, brown, and poor white communities in particular, have loved ones or know someone in prison. Brought together, these people can become one of the largest and most forceful pressure groups in the country. A union of prisoners' loved ones.
I want to call on loved ones and prison people to come together to form a support group for us, People Against Prison Abuse, or PAPPA. To begin, we need to form a steering committee of devoted and accountable outside and inside people who can coordinate the group, do outreach to loved ones, to bring others into the group who need help and support in addressing abuses of imprisoned loved ones, and develop strategies of protest, exposure, and resistance. Please explain from Kevin now. Please. Okay. All right, there you go. Your point of view.
All right, that's the article. In summation, it was just a breakdown of the conditions that we're dealing with, and that with most prisoners, those loved ones who are aware of abuses going on typically don't know what to do if they believe their loved ones about what they're suffering. Because most of us are indoctrinated, we're brainwashed to believe that the system exists for the purposes that it claims, to protect the public, to act out the interests of the law enforcement system, to ensure that society is protected from people who commit wrongs against society, and that the people on the inside are treated humanely and are there for rehabilitation, which is the exact opposite of the reality of how prisons in America work and their purpose. So when loved ones do believe or are presented with evidence from their incarcerated loved ones about abuses, typically they are left to their own measures or resources in trying to respond to that. So they run up against a brick wall, not knowing how to respond or what to do. They may contact legislators, prison officials, et cetera, with complaints, and they're given a runaround, promises of an investigation, and they simply run into a brick wall. Nothing is done. And we've seen that through the organizing we've been doing. And many of the people who become part of UPROAR begin as individual relatives of abused loved ones who ran into these exact same obstacles, trying to get intervention, support, investigations, or responses or relief against their abused loved ones. So together, united, the public is really the only force that those in political office fear, because they are the source of their political power, particularly the elected officials who are over the Department of Corrections or the actual prison system, the concentration camp system. Because they, through elected power or electoral power, are the ones who put these people in their positions of power. So, of course, their public image means everything to them. So when we come together as a collective voice and we expose the abuses going on, we bear witness to the lies, to the cover-ups, to the inhumanity, the brutality and the barbarity of what our loved ones who are incarcerated are subjected to, and we publicize this, then we stand to change the image, to expose the truth against these people who are seeking election of what they preside over, and their failure to address and protect and provide the conditions, the humane conditions that our loved ones are entitled to while they're incarcerated. And when their images are put on the line, then we will get a response, particularly when it becomes more broadly informed, or the public becomes more broadly informed of these conditions, because the public, of course, are the ones who are going to elect them into office. Outside of that, they don't care what's done to us. They will make promises to the extent that we get to them individually and complain about abuses, to change things or to investigate things, but they're not going to do anything, because the system works to empower them and to enrich them, and that's all they care about. They, in fact, are the protectors and enforcers of these abusive conditions, which many of our UPROAR members are seeing firsthand. This is an institutionalized system of brutality, inhumanity, racism, and abuse, and it will cover up its own abuses. It will lie. It will create systems of nepotism and cronyism between people who have worked their way up in the ranks because of, in fact, being corrupt and abusive. They're the ones who become career officials. They're the ones who move up into the highest administrative positions, and they give positions to and promotions to those who protect or maintain the blue line of abuse that keeps the system running the way that it does. Our role is to make it impossible for them to continue to do business as usual. And the only way we can do this is through unity, not through established not-for-profits and career advocates who want to rub elbows with people in power who will accept bribes and closed-door meetings and promises that we're going to change this if you go along with us, if you just keep quiet and sweep under the rug what's going on. Publicity is our own weapon. Public is our own weapon. And this is why it's important that we understand that we need to create as large and as informed a base of support, of public support as possible, that we bring them together in a collective unity of resistance, publicizing through rallies, through protests, through attending these public gatherings where we're talking about legislative sessions, not to go in there and try to strike deals with them, to negotiate with them, or to listen to their false promises, but to understand they're only going to protect the system as long as we go along with what they're doing. They're only going to offer us empty promises. They're only going to offer us fake investigations as long as we sit back and believe their empty promises, their smiles, their assurances that they're here for the betterment of the people and the prisoners, etc. We have got to protest and challenge them. We've got to expose them and put their careers on the line. That's the only way that you're going to get them to do what they're supposed to do. So that is the gist of what this article is about. And I'd like to open the floor to anyone who has questions or comments. I think a lot of you can bear witness to what's said in this article through your own experience individually and since joining UPROAR, that we are only going to bring change through collective struggle. We need unity, and individually, we really stand to gain little to nothing. So I would like to open the floor to anybody that has comments or critiques or questions. Please express yourself.
I was trying to put my hand up, but I'll go ahead since somebody's jumping in. I just wanted to comment on the one line that rings so true, because these people will just lie to you, and I knew that, and I still got caught up the other week because my loved one, Comrade Pitt, he is on phone restriction. And I said, I just went in one night and I said, let me just try to see if I can do visits. Because I remember before, when even though he was in solitary, he was allowed to still have visits and calls once a week. But, this is phone restriction. Maybe it's different because I got in contact with the case manager and I was asking him because had put in the visit thing and then I went in to try to make the visit and it said that I didn't have permission to do something. And he said, "Oh yeah, that's because he doesn't have he's on phone restriction. So there when they don't have phone restriction, they don't have video visits, they don't have in-person visits, they don't have anything." So it took for Comrade Pitt to get word to me, but it was on that third paragraph where they said about, they will lie to you, which on my screen is acting up, so I wanted to read it directly, but they will just lie to you for no reason. So you have to be prepared to, like, when you're dealing with them, to question even everything that they're telling you because they just, as a matter of course, they just lie. And they had lied and told him that his phone restriction was a year. They told me it was 90 days, so we don't know what's true yet. But that's so true. That's why it's so important for us to have the support of one another so that, we're not just that one person calling in getting the lies. We have, the strength of numbers to force them into doing the right thing and releasing, giving our the adults inside what they are due. But they have to be, that was the other line, they have to be made to do it. They're not just going to do it out of the goodness of their heart because they want to do the right thing. They don't do that. That's not how they operate at all. They'll do whatever they can get away with if we don't force their hand.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the comrades, I'd like, if possible, I would like to direct a question or to invite a comrade to respond. Melinda, she has loved ones on the inside, and she began trying to bring attention to and to resolve abuses that they were being subjected to by her own effort to call and complain. And I think she can give testament to the failures of attempts to try to respond to things or to get attention and resolve things by making your own complaints individually versus us coming together collectively to challenge those abuses and publicizing. And if she's interested, I'd be interested to have her, give her account of how that process works, trying to seek investigations and resolutions by herself versus us coming together and doing collective resistance and collective publicity.
Okay. When my son first had a complaint, I didn't know anything about uproar. Um, I'd reached out to like the NAACP and the ACLU, which I don't know what that is. I then would call up to the prison and I would say ridiculous things. Like, who's that baby pappy? Because I wanted to know who had the right to beat him. I was angry. And so with my anger came a little ignorance. Um, and then it wasn't until I'm at Uproar, I didn't get any help. They were just, giving me blanketed answers. They were being disrespectful, and I really didn't know what to do. So it wasn't until I think I met Kevin first, and then I met Ev, and and then I realized that amongst when there's more people, then we that the support is different and the way it's done is different. And I've had more success in a group setting than I have outside, but just doing it myself. A welfare check does nothing. It just makes you feel better for the time, but it does nothing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it doesn't even make you feel better. It makes you have more
That's right, because you're like,
questions.
they're lying to me.
Yeah, it has more questions. You have more questions. Like, well, they said this, but how do they know this if
Mhm.
they don't have his name, or his state
Right.
number? So, I do believe that working in a group setting is more powerful than trying to do this by yourself. So, is that the answer you're looking for, Rashid? That's all I have.
Yeah, that kind of touches on the point. Yeah, I'm really just interested in people on the call giving their own personal experience
Right.
as to the accuracy or inaccuracy of this article, which was written before we ever created UPROAR. And does it speak to the truth of their experience with abuse of their loved ones on the inside, the obstacles they ran into trying to challenge those abuses or bring attention to those abuses or resolve the conditions that their loved ones were subjected to? Do they see the difference in attempting to do it on their own versus the collective response within an organization that never has enough members? We never have enough numbers because the public is, again, our only weapon. And the understanding or the vision being true that we are the only real effective force to bring about change in response to abuses. So yeah, I'm just interested in people's feedback and input in response to the article and what they witnessed and experienced in their own struggles in response to the prison abuses, and do they feel that this is an accurate analysis of our conditions, what we can and cannot be effective in changing, and how?
I will say this. Once when my son was at Greenville, he was beaten. And once I did all, went through all my little crazy antics. It actually got me banned from DOC for a little while. I could have went to jail. Um, I think that once I joined Uproar, I realized that, it takes a village. It's not just one person that can do this because we don't know what we're doing when we first start out. It's just dealing with anger and rage. So I agree that we have to address the issues together and be strategic in the way we handle things. And
Mhm.
and it does help. It's a difference.
Mhm.
It goes much. If I had the help I needed from the beginning, I probably would not have experienced some of the things I experienced, or my son.
Yeah. And when it's done right, a tool that we use a lot is collectively calling. We call it a phones app or emails app.
Yep.
And even though they may ignore the emails in the sense that they don't respond to you directly a lot of the time, when they are done right and you speak to your loved one later, they will tell you that
Hmm.
that they came to you. And usually what I hear from Pitt is that they're saying like, "Oh, you have a very a
Support
very
circle.
dedicated fiance."
Yep.
Like call off your dogs. They go and the warden comes and talks to them personally. Like, okay, what can we do to rectify this?
Hmm.
Because your people are driving us crazy. Can you have them stop calling?
Pretty much.
So they do notice, even though they like to pretend that they don't and they don't care.
Yep.
But I mean, they don't care, but they do. It does impact them.
Um, if I may, I'd like to share something that Ekong told me recently. Ekong Ishite is someone that Rashid mentioned earlier as someone who was in the cell next door to that set himself on fire. We were able to maintain contact with Ekong. They shipped him to Indiana in April of last year because he was continuing to do interviews and give, phone testimony that was being recorded and shared on prison radio. And so they moved him to Indiana, and he was able to, get someone else in the pod to get word to us that of what facility he was at. And it took us a while, but his demands immediately were, at first, like, I want to stay in Indiana. I don't want to go back to Virginia, now that y'all got me out here, I certainly don't want to go back to the Western region. But recently he was like, I do want to come home. And so we mounted a call and email campaign. And he's back. He's back home in Virginia. He's at Nottoway Correctional Center. He's going to Green Rock next month. And he told me on the phone the other day that Kyle Rosh, the Interstate Corrections Compact liaison, had a meeting with him at Nottoway a couple weeks ago. And he said, I'm trying to remember the phrase that he used. He said that Indiana sent him home because he was raising hell. That's what it was. He said, because you were raising hell in there. And Ekong said, no, I wasn't raising the hell. I just have a strong network of people who's not going to let y'all slide on violating my constitutional rights. And y'all got tired of calls and emails. And he said Kyle Rosh just like nodded his head.
That's funny. And these are our little wins. They might be, small, but they're big to the person inside that's suffering.
Did anybody have any questions for Rashid as the author, or any of the folks who've spoken on their experiences? All right. So we have 26 minutes left. The what is a comrade and why we use the term piece is pretty short. So we should be able to just read it real quick, and we'll have a little bit of time anyway. So does anybody who hasn't read yet want to start what is a comrade and why we use the term? And I can put the link in the chat for anybody who can't see the screen.
Yeah, I got you. The concept of quote unquote comrade has a special meaning and significance in revolutionary struggle. We have often been asked to explain our use of this term, especially by our peers who are new to the struggle, instead of more familiar terms like brother, homie, cousin, dog, nigga, etc.
Foremost is that we aspire to build a society based upon equality and a culture of revolutionary transformation. So we need to purge ourselves of the tendency to use terms of address that connote cliques and exclusive relationships. A comrade can be a man or a woman of any color or ethnicity, but definitely a fellow fighter in the struggle against all oppression.
Terms like Mr. or youngster imply a difference of social status, entitlement to greater or lesser respect, and built in concepts of superiority or inferiority. Terms like bitch, dog, nigga, hoe, etc. are degrading and disrespectful, even when used affectionately, as some do to dull the edge of their general usage in a world that disrespects us.
Comrade, however, connotes equality and respect. It implies I've got your back and we are one. Comrades stand united unconditionally and if need be to the death. It implies a relationship that is inclusive, not exclusive, and not based on any triviality, but revolutionary class solidarity. It represents the socialist future we seek to represent in the struggles of today and the eventual triumph of classless community society. Most forms of address used by New Africans carry subtle implications of differing status and worth, or were originally meant to insult and dehumanize us. Embracing these terms has led to our subconsciously embracing these roles and feeling and believing we are inferior and treating each other as worthless than others. So it is definitely important that we remind ourselves constantly that we are equal to and as good as anyone else and address each other accordingly. As Malcolm X put it in an interview with the Village Voice in 1965, the greatest mistake of the movement has been trying to organize a sleeping people around specific goals. You have to wake the people up first, then you'll get action. Wake them up to their exploitation, the interviewer asks. No, Malcolm replied, to their humanity, to their own worth.
Conscious use of the term comrade instead of the many disparaging terms of address popular today explicitly connects all people up as humans and equals. It reminds us of our interdependence for survival, promotes relations of equality, friendship, and camaraderie between all oppressed and exploited people. It expresses the unified outlook of the proletariat, and it will promote a change in people's outlook and thinking. Its use identifies those committed to the revolutionary struggle and represents the future in the struggles of today.
As Amilcar Cabral expressed in
As
Our
Amilcar
People.
Cabral,
Go ahead.
okay, as Amilcar Cabral expressed in Our People Are Our Mountains, I call you comrades rather than brothers and sisters, because if we are brothers and sisters, it's not from choice. It's no commitment. But if you are my comrade, I am your comrade too. And that's a commitment and a responsibility. This is the political meaning of comrade.
In the interpersonal sense, camaraderie binds people by respect, mutual support, and trust, making organizations cohesive and stable. It builds and cements unity in the process of struggle, generating mutual confidence between people, affirming that we can rely upon each other, regardless of the dangers that come from standing for the people and social justice for all.
Examples of genuine examples of genuine camaraderie are inspirational to the people and build their willingness to make a commitment to this. The development and maintenance of organizational structure depends on the close and genuine camaraderie of the revolutionaries, what we call Panther love.
All power to the people.
Awesome. All right, great piece. All power to the people. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I was just gonna do exactly that, invite you to speak a little bit on it.
All right, in summary, this is just a piece that explains the difference, the purpose, the meaning of the use of comrade by politically conscious people engaged in the struggle against the oppressive system and institutions, and why we use that term as opposed to terms that imply differences in social status, terms that imply superiority or inferiority in people's statuses, that are used or reflect terms that disrespected us, particularly people of color, new African people, working class people, people of marginalized gender orientations. Why we use the term as a means of recognizing and representing unity, solidarity, mutual respect, support, where we recognize we have each other's back. And it's not a term that goes just with relationships that develop between us spontaneously or develop between us that are not, of our own choice, such as being brothers or sisters, what have you, as Amilcar Cabral pointed out. But it's a conscious choice that we understand we have come together for a purpose of unifying in struggle, of having each other's back, of having mutual respect, mutual support, and being willing to suffer and even die if necessary in fighting together with each other toward a common end. As Malcolm X had expressed, one of the impediments to us being able to organize and oppress people is that we are trying to organize people who are not conscious or who are not awakened. And when he did the interview where the question came up, the interviewer asked him, what do you mean, wake them up to their exploitation? And he said, no, we need to wake them up to their human worth. And this is one of the points of being recognized in the use of the term comrade, is that we recognize we're all equal. There's no greater or lesser person. We're trying and struggling to open each other's eyes and respect and value each other as human beings, people who have the love, the respect, the honor, and the commitment of their peers, and that they are people who are worthy of being fought for, alongside, and to fight with in the struggle to change oppressive conditions. And it, in the political context, camaraderie means a unification as part of an organization or structure whose orientation is specifically to take on and challenge, expose, and to end oppressive conditions. Whereas in the interpersonal sense, camaraderie means unification, mutual respect, mutual love, mutual support, and so on. So we want to make the distinction between why we use the term comrade as opposed to other terms when we become part of political organizations that have a commitment to taking on a system of oppression, and why it's important that we make a conscious decision, not merely a decision, just an imitation of what others may do or say, but a conscious decision to recognize each other as equals, as people who we have mutual love, respect, solidarity with, and unity with, to stand together against a common oppressive system and to have each other's back, whatever the cost, whatever the sacrifice. That is the distinction between, the use of the term comrade as opposed to use of other terms that have become socially acceptable or just popular terms or expression or endearment, what have you. So I would open the floor to anybody who has any comments on, this piece, the term comrade, what it means to them, and any questions or criticisms or any input they may have.
And before we do that, I wanted to ask Rashid, do you have a copy of your poem, We Need Comrades, Not Advocates, handy? And if so, would you be willing to read it real quick after, a couple people give some input on the article?
Definitely. You all can give your input real quick, and I can pull it out. Yes, I definitely have it handy. Go ahead.
Awesome. So open the floor. Did anybody have any thoughts or feelings about this as they were reading through it for the first time earlier this week? Anything that stands out to you now? Anything you'd like to share on any of the quotes referenced or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to kind of add that I do like the point, this paragraph where the Amilcar Cabral quote is we're like saying that, like, pretty much summarizing that being a comrade and calling someone a comrade is a conscious choice, and you only make that choice to those who are willing to commit themselves to what that means. And that also kind of implores us to like really not redefine comrade, but really re-energize it to mean something very serious, mean something very, very real, very immediate. When you call someone a comrade, that means that you're willing to struggle with them and alongside them, along, abiding by the principles of revolutionary struggle. So I do like that aspect of, like, if we were family or blood related, that wouldn't be a choice. You wouldn't. That would be something that's just like, a choice you can make. I call you a comrade. I really am trying to say that, like, I see you and understand that we are both conscious of our condition, and because of that, we're aligning and forming to oppose those conditions all the same. And that's a conscious choice. That's not one that can be forced upon. It has to be a consensual process.
I like to add also, it brought me back to when I first started organizing, and I just kept hearing everybody say comrade, and I'm like, ooh, that's, I said, I think I went and looked it up, and so I could kind of understand it a little bit better. But it really, especially once you're organizing, you'll get to really see the difference between, your comrades and just friends or associates or whatever, because, a lot of people, they don't even really mess with their family because, family can be messed up. They can do worse than, a stranger. But, I went through a lot of different things and my comrades were right there with me, supported me, and it made a difference. It really made a big difference because I feel like especially for certain things. My daughter went through a situation where she was abducted, and the comrades went with me to rescue my daughter because, of course, the cops wasn't going to do anything. I didn't call them, and then after they did get involved, they still didn't do what they were supposed to do. And I'm just so grateful that she came home pretty much safe and intact. There were some things that healing that she had to do, but I'm most certain that the outcome could have been very, very different if I didn't have anybody to you know accompany in that struggle, because that's the worst experience nobody wants to that you never want to have to go through. But it's really real when you have comrades, and you see the difference once you start organizing, even within uproar. I think people have similar type of experiences. You really see what a comrade is versus a friend or even family.
I'd like to
Tyshawn,
chime in with something.
oh yeah, please.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Comrade.
Oh, I was just going to say, Tyshawn in the chat, for those that can't read the screen, put a quote in from the Bible. I think the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
And I'd like to throw in something to add on to what Comrade Sojourner just said. We've been organizing together, within our party, the Revolutionary and the Communal Black Panther Party, formerly the New African Black Panther Party, for some years.
Yeah.
And I can speak to the experience she's talking about, where her daughter was abducted. Comrades went to the location where she was and got her daughter back for her. We struggled alongside each other and our comrades on the inside and outside, dealing with the abuses inside the prisons, struggling to bring resources to our oppressed communities, food to the youth, different programs, and organizing around oppressive conditions collectively as opposed to individuals trying to, bring charitable efforts to people. We genuinely organize, sacrifice resources, time, effort, energy, and blood and sweat in our struggle to bring healing and wholeness to people who are being abused, oppressed, and neglected. And we stood firm in this struggle. We've always had each other's back. And this is something that I feel is probably new to the people coming into uproar, because we are experiencing some of the things in uproar that Sojourner can validate, have been experienced within our organizations in the past. Some of the gossiping, the division, conflict, these are growing pains. But they they call for a necessity of understanding what a comrade is. Comrades don't gossip against each other. We don't factionalize against our comrades behind their backs. We don't try to convince people, influence people to believe negative, vindictive things about people when they're not present to defend themselves or to respond. But we're not vindictive in any case. But there are certain things that are being incorporated into the rules as uproar is developing now to help resolve some of the things that are, coming out that are not reflective of camaraderie, and which understanding what a comrade is will help to resolve, as opposed to what people do when they bicker amongst themselves because there's no real unity, there's no real sense of cohesion, love, respect, mutuality. And these are things that are important in any organization when we're struggling, particularly at the bottom of the food chain, to bring about changes of oppressive conditions that are created by those at the top of the food chain. We need unity. Those in power understand that have power over people that outnumber them 1,000 to 1, they have to work together. And that's why they have the power they have, because they put their heads together, they cooperate even when they don't like each other. They work together. They understand we can't show division amongst ourselves in the circles of those we oppress. And that's something that we need to, and we must understand, and understanding what a comrade is and uniting with each other in camaraderie is a large part of resolving potential divisions and conflicts that would make us not possible, not capable of exercising cohesion when we work together to bring about change. So I think this article itself is important as Comrade Everett pointed out at the beginning, in relation to what we're doing with UPROAR, because it's important that we understand the camaraderie that's needed inside of an organization that is taking on the oppression and the abuses of the system for us to be able to stand strong, firm, and to support each other and trust each other in this type of struggle.
Yeah, and I just want to add to, I've been asked by people too, like after having that experience with something personal, you know, people coming to attack against you and it affected your family, did that make you want to stop? And I really didn't even have to think about it. I said, you know, as much as I love my children, I'm like, no, it's too much work to be done. It's too much work to be done. I can't stop because who's going to do it?
That's that spirit of camaraderie right there.
hmm
The reason that I suggested that we that Rashid share his poem "We Need Comrades, Not Advocates" is it kind of serves as a bridge between this piece and the other one, the call to organize, right? Because there's language in there about you know, the NGO and like careerism and opportunism in the call to action, and you know, that was explicitly written in because there is a pretty large, like, you know, prison advocacy industry in Virginia, and many of the organizations are doing some good work in some areas of reform. Some are led by people from, you know, that have been inside, you know, but there's a it's to do with the way that you relate to money and capital and power, and political power, especially, that separates, I think, you know, a comrade from an advocate. And you'll see it in some of the tactics and methods and like hopes and aspirations and priorities of people that are advocates rather than comrades, the limitations of their approach, right? And it's become more and more clear to me as we've been doing this work for the last year, you know, but I do connect it, like, you know, theoretically to sort of the same limitations around liberal union organizing, right? If the union structure is a certain way and the leadership of the union has a certain relationship with people in power, then that limits the power of the union, right? And so just as there's a call for independent working class unions that don't rely on either political party, I saw the call to action as situated within those same logics and those same like structural dynamics. You know, and I've been reading Rashid's books for a while, right? And like other Marxist and Marxist-Leninist literature. So I sort of recognize that like class awareness within that call to action. And that's specifically what drew me to it, is the seriousness in the theoretical rigor, but also like the groundedness in experience and like the deep knowledge, the visceral knowledge that the pigs are pigs, right? And that it's war.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have a few minutes left before our 5:30, and I don't want to hold anybody up beyond that mark, but I do think it's enough time to squeeze in that poem and then maybe for some closing remarks. If Rashid, if you're ready and have it.
Yeah, I definitely am. All right, this is "We Need Comrades, Not Advocates" that I wrote back in early 2025. And it says, "We endure torture, death, and suffering, while you compete for clout and fame. Advocates, helpers, good talkers, bad walkers, ventriloquists who speak in our name. Which one of you spoke to us, walked the yard in our shoes, asked us what mattered, what issues of protest we choose. When did you good Samaritans visit, ride hours on a prison bus? But somehow you claim to ride for us, stand and speak for us. We're not for profits, chasing grant money, raising donations in our name. Criticize the Wall Street profiteers, but we profits from our suffering just the same. Have you no shame, seeking favor from those with whom we have beef? Friends of my enemy, you're no friend of me. We need a movement of comrades with teeth. And with that, this information again, these are analyses and articles that address the conditions of oppression suffered in this particular instance by prisoners, but are actually only a microcosm of the oppressive conditions that exist in society as a whole and globally as a whole under this imperialist system. In a lot of cases, the oppressions that begin in prisons or that exist in prisons are the beginnings of, or they're actually a trial run for what is going to be implemented in society. In prisons, they have a literal captive audience that must submit to their control, their dominance, their oppression, and don't have the resources, the means, or the numbers to resist and change things independently. So a lot of the methods that they refine and develop to be applied against the general population, they begin by implementing them against us in prison. A lot of what they're doing out in society now, massive roundups, the police powers, the weapon systems, the containment, the police corralling in populations, bringing together and their forces to respond to and suppress protests. A lot of the methods that they're using now are methods that they developed, they refined, and they evolved inside of the prison. So a large part of what's going on the outside is connected to what's going on the inside. And we need mutual solidarity, we need mutual organizing, both on the inside and to the outside, to bring about real change and challenging and stopping a lot of these abuses. And this is what really terrorized the system if we go back to the struggles of the 60s and the 70s. The revolutionary movement, the liberation struggles of oppressed people, whether you're talking about working class, Native Americans, new African blacks, the women's struggle, the struggle of students, the struggle of marginalized gender people. When these struggles started to come together to unify and really strip the foundation of the system during the 60s and 70s, it was a unification of what was going on the outside with what was going on the inside, because you had a dominant major prison movement going on the inside that was concentrated in the images and the examples of comrades like George Jackson. You had Malcolm X, who had come out of prison, who had influenced a lot of the political development of people and the values, the culture, the integrity, the sense of honesty that was brought into the movement from people who came out of the prisons and became politically conscious. A lot of them developed their political consciousness while they were in prison. And this was a unifying factor in those movements back then. And it led to the creation of supermaxes and the control unit prisons that purged and isolate the conscious prisoners, and was a large part of the repression of the social movements of that time. So again, it's important that we understand the connection of oppression in the prison, the need of camaraderie in our struggle inside the prison to the outside, and the unification of the inside to outside struggles, which is captured, I think, very objectively in what we're trying to do with UPROAR. So with that, I will close my comments and my discussion of the issues and allow Comrade Evie to close out and extend my greetings to all power to the people.
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 We are 2 minutes over our end time. We can
that's good
go
for
ahead
us.
and close. Yeah, not bad.
I'm impressed.
just some sort of housekeeping stuff, and then we'll do, final remarks. Anybody can kind of chime in with their thoughts and feelings. But I will put in the chat a link to get on our mailing list. Everybody found the link to this somehow, so either through email or social media already. But our mailing list is, we send out at least weekly sort of updates on the campaigns or cases that we're working on. Any upcoming things like this, we always send out, and so it's a good way to stay in touch. And often in our links, we also include ways where you can join UPROAR if you're not a member already. So, there's, even if you don't live in Virginia, where most of our work is, some of our members do live out of state, and our primary focus is on Virginia prisons, but you can also work with us and learn the methods that we're using, and we can support you in developing a chapter there, right? Like in some of our founding documents, we note, anywhere 3 people are gathered in our name, there we are, right? Like, so if there's somebody that you love on the inside, it's what we want to do. It's like inside outside unity, right? So thanks to everyone for joining, and we'll open it up just for final remarks. Anybody can give their thoughts or regards or anything like that if they'd like. Appreciate everybody showing up.
Same, I echo what Evie said. Thank you for coming out and listening to and studying with us the articles that Rashid wrote. We should have, hopefully we'll have many more, and we will get an increase in attendance. So tell your friends, tell your comrades.
I just
Yeah, and I
want
think
to applaud you guys for sticking like kind of close to the time and very, very close to the subject. This is a great informative meeting. I really like the fact that I could really hear Rashid this time. Like this is the way that we need to hear Rashid. Like I can hear him. You know what I'm saying? So we need to have him on this kind of conference call more often. But yeah, this was great right here.
Awesome.
I'm glad that I can hear you all too.
I just wanted to say thank you for the invitation. Today was definitely a day of listening, and so I'm just looking forward to, over time, getting to talk with y'all more and seeing where things can go. But thank you once more.
Awesome. Yeah, all power to the people. Thanks again, everybody. It's something that I learned recently in the meeting. If everybody can unmute your mics, and we can just close with all power to the people, unless anybody has anything that they haven't said yet.
All power to the people.
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 Here to struggle, there to win.